All right, and welcome back, everyone, to the Recharging the Human Battery radio show. I'm your host, Dr. Stefano Sinicropi, your friendly orthopedic spine surgeon turned staunch wellness advocate. We are on AM 950 radio today, and as usual, it's been an interesting week, and I'm fired up. So let's start with what's eating away at me. You guys that listen to me or follow me on social media or watch the podcast, you know how passionate I've become about really helping the American public to go on the right path, to really seek the answers that they're not getting, seek truthfulness that they're not getting, and really cut through all the noise that we are bombarded with from advertisements, food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, all these other people that are telling us to live certain lives which are catastrophic for us. And we've talked many, many times about the chronic health crisis that we've got going on in this country. So it's always top of mind. So when I hear things, sometimes I just almost blow a gasket, and I almost have to pull my car over because it's just not safe for the others on the road at times. And so I'm in my car, and I'm listening to a financial radio show. I just popped in. It's literally the first thing that I hear on this program is a discussion about the McDonald's value meal, this $5 value meal that's been going on now for several months. They've done this test in different markets, and they're talking about how great it is. Wow, this is amazing. So you get your burger, your fries. It comes with a bunch of things in there. It is some outrageous number of calories. Your large drink. And they can throw in different things. It's $5. And so the commentators are going back and forth, and they're talking about how McDonald's is they're thinking about how are they going to continue rolling out this $5 value meal to compete with the other players in the space, such as convenience stores, other fast food restaurants, and things like that are pretty much giving away their junk food, petrochemical nonsense that we feed our American public and getting us sicker and sicker. And I can just tell you, the people they were talking to, they are just delighted. They're just having a great old time talking about this stuff, saying, oh, yeah, this is great because we're really going to tap, McDonald's is going to tap back into this, low end of the population, meaning the low socioeconomic groups that they target more. We all know that these ads that are run by the fast food industry, specifically, they're run way more. I mean, you're talking double to triple the amount of ads in low socioeconomic areas to low income groups, and they run a lot of these ads to our children. And so I'm sitting there listening to them giddy about the value meal. No one's stepping in saying, aren't we destroying our society? Aren't we destroying our children's brains? Aren't we promoting horrible, and I mean horrible, eating habits in a population that is diabetic, obese, hypertensive, has cardiovascular disease, autoimmune disease, early dementia, mental health issues, feels like crap? Hell, I got it. You know what? I have the solution to the problem. More $5 value meals. That's how we're going to fix our problem in America. Guys, this is tragic. And on the other end of this break, I want to talk about what's really going on and about how people really perceive what's going on and how misguided they are and how we've gotten to a point where this stuff is normal. So excited to talk to you guys on the other side of the break. Hopefully we can make just a little bit of headway into helping our public understand how bad things really have gotten. All right, and we are back on Recharging the Human Battery radio show. Dr. Stefano Sinicropi here. We're on AM 950 radio. So happy that you decided to tune in today. And I really do think that this is one of the key issues that I want to get across to the listeners, to the public, through all the venues that I have possible. Now, it's a lot easier for me to get this across when I'm with a patient face-to-face and I see, issues going on with them. So I have more time to talk to them one-on-one, and it's very specific to them. But we are not going to make any headway with the population, even with the medical community, until everybody really sits down and sits in a quiet room and thinks to themselves, holy smoke, this is unbelievably bad. It's worse than bad, what we've got going on. I am an absolute eternal optimist. For the people around me, they know I'm always fired up. I'm always excited. Very much a rah-rah approach. That's how I approach things in surgery. That's how I approach things in my practice and this and that. But unfortunately, being a huge ray of sunshine ain't going to cut it when people have been so deeply and intensely brainwashed by the forces that be, right? I mean, you guys know this. I mean, you could look it up. Little kids can recognize the McDonald's arches and other different things way before they know who the president of the United States is or any of those all those other things. They recognize that right away. Why? Because we are bombarded. Okay, from the second that we are coherent with advertisements, commercials, we drive around, we see things. Our parents take us to McDonald's. Our parents take us to Burger King, Wendy's, now the convenience stores, all these places just filled with junk, absolute petrochemical junk, designed to keep you hooked on this stuff that is not healthy for you. So, again, when I talk about the problems that are facing us as Americans, or it's really a world problem, but it is very, very serious, especially here in the North American continent, because we've kind of allowed ourselves to become over-corporatized and overrun by interests whose you are last on the list of people that are interested in your well-being. You're first on the list, however, in them targeting you as a consumer of their products. So for those of you that are not familiar with it, there's something called ARPU, and that is revenue per user. Social media companies use things like ARPU, right? They talk about this on their conference calls. They talk about it. They want to know per customer, how much revenue are they generating? Everybody is seeing all these corporate interests. All they see is RPU, revenue per user. And that's the way these fast food companies, the companies that are selling you chocolate, even though some will argue with me on some of the good benefits of chocolate, but let's just say candy, things that have high refined sugars, all these companies that are selling you their potato chips and this and that are high in seed oils, which are catastrophic, for our health. They just see as commodities. Their research scientists spend their days locked away in some basement thinking about how can I make this product even more addictive so that when you get hooked on it, not only is your brain hooked on it, but your body is hooked on it, so much so that when you walk away from those chips or that candy or whatever, you actually start to detox. And then you need more because you feel sick. You need that food. You need that dopamine rush. And it all goes into this whole dopamine system, the pleasure reward system of the brain, which can be hijacked by these things that give you a dopamine rush. It's a feel-good hormone. And when you get that rush, you remember that rush and you want it back. And so our society now has really gotten away from healthy dopamine rushes, because honestly, when you go out on a beautiful day in nature, when you spend quality time with your family and friends, when you read an amazing book, you get the healthy, clean dopamine. That's what we want. That's the way that we were built. We weren't built to get dopamine highs from the latest post on Twitter and everybody, hearting it. And we were not built, our brains were really not built to get dopamine highs from a, Twix bar, or a bag of Doritos, or whatever gives you your highest of highs. And unfortunately, that's where our society is going. One of the things that really I've read so much as far as books and physicians, and I'm very glad that people are stepping up on this as we get into really how brainwashed we are. But I'm going to talk about some people that have come on my show and I've talked to. But there's a book by a Dr. Robert Lustig, and it's called The Hacking of the American Mind. And it's one that, when I read it, because I've watched a lot of his stuff on YouTube and other things, and actually some of his conferences when he goes and speaks at conferences. But it's called The Hacking of the American Mind. And it specifically looks at how corporatization of our culture has really led to the brainwashing of our minds and how it's benefiting all these corporations. And he has all these incredible statistics looking at if we can get people just to follow guidelines, which he doesn't even believe in. Because, like dietary guidelines, if they just followed the guidelines, which we that are in the wellness space, the preventative space, this and that, think that need to be dramatically overhauled. If we just, for example, looked at what the recommended guidelines are for sugar intake, okay, which I don't want to mention now because I don't want you to follow that guideline. It's not correct. But anyway, if Americans just follow the guideline, Lustig's theory is that it would save $1 trillion. $1 trillion to the medical system, which is $4.4 trillion. Just that, would reduce the cost of a chronic disease. And in that book, he really explores how corporations have systematically, purposefully exploited the brain chemistry to profit. This is a fundamental problem. I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm an insider of insiders. I've been in the medical system for a long time. And so am I a proponent of all types of Western medical care? Absolutely. As you guys know, for injury, for horrible genetic conditions, for serious other conditions that once it arises, yes, it's great. So I'm not trying to to downplay any of that stuff. So I think that although also Dr. Lustig and Dr. Lufkin that I've had on my show and several other people, they're hardcore Western-trained doctors. They're the insiders of the insiders. They have come to the conclusion that until we really attack the brainwashing that has happened both in the public but also with our colleagues in the medical communities where these things have become really okay. And it doesn't make it just doesn't make any sense. So without going too deep in the weeds, I thought I'd share some of the things that just in the last week, I'm not even going to share things that have happened over the last year because I'd need a 10-hour show to do that. But I just want to share some of the conversations I've had, both with experts, my patients, and people that I work with. Okay, and I think those three things should be really, really eye-opening. I'll end with the experts because, honestly, sitting around talking to you about, oh, this expert said this and this expert said that, I think that sometimes when you hear what people say that are basically lay people that have no, they're not tied to really the medical industry. They're not docs. They're not providers. They're not wellness. They're just people that have these thoughts. When you sometimes when we say stuff, like sometimes I'll get on some rant about like something that happened at my kid's soccer game or something. And for some reason, I think that I'm sounding reasonable. But if somebody else heard me talking, they're like, wow, this guy's a crazy parent or whatever, that kind of stuff. But sometimes if I hear this another parent and they're saying the exact same thing that I'm saying, I'm like, wow, they're really not having a good day or they're a little bit too intense or something like that. So sometimes listening to kind of what people say. So very interesting. So let's talk about a conversation that happened this week in the OR. So I was working with really nice people. Love talking to our staff at the hospital and kind of getting into these discussions. And so we had a discussion this week about dieting. And it's very, very interesting because it became very apparent that the people that were discussing that, and they brought it up. I didn't even bring this up. I was just doing a case. This is a very big surgery I was doing. And we just started talking about their diets. And the overall theme that happened in this room, everybody was chiming in because they know I love talking about this stuff. So they just go on and on about these things, and I love it. And so they were talking about how hard it was for them to lose weight, how hard it was for them, to follow diets. It really, it's not working. I tried this and this doesn't work and it's so hard and whatever. So anyway, I started really diving into their own thing, whatever they wanted to share. So I would just ask them about what their diets are. And I can tell you overwhelmingly some of the pushback I was getting, because, again, I don't try to do this on a soapbox or anything like that, but I was getting a lot of pushback because I was really digging into how much processed foods they consume. Kudos to them for trying to make changes in their diets by reducing some of their sugar and this and that. So we got into this whole processed foods thing. And I can tell you overwhelmingly the pushback I got, everybody in the room was 100% convinced that if you consume processed foods in moderation, it's fine. It's healthy. It's healthy. I'll tell you that is absolutely 100% not true. It's just not true. Maybe once in a while, consuming some processed foods here and there, you're on the run, you cheat, you have a little bag of, potato chips. Is that something I'm going to condone? No, but that's the reality of life, and people do it, and even the staunchest wellness experts, we all do it here and there. Everybody cheats. I mean, that's just what it is. But consuming processed foods in what the American mind considers to be in moderation is really what I'm talking about. It's a big problem. So I started asking people, well, what do you mean? Okay, you're consuming moderation. Let's talk about that. The ideas that we have been brainwashed with that is in moderation. I can tell you, I'll give you an example. This is not moderation. Okay, having 4 slices of pizza in one. This is one response. Having 4 slices of pizza, in one day, and then having cookies at night and chips because that's the dessert, right? So even if you eat a healthy food, you have to have some chips and some cookies, right, to wash it down, because otherwise you're not satisfied. You're not satisfied. Those are the types of responses that we were getting without getting into it. That consuming those things, I will tell you, you have been brainwashed to think that's okay. Another thing that came up in this discussion, and again, I want to keep it light today because there's just having and those of you that are listening, think about what I'm saying. Do you think that it's unreasonable? Do you think that these people, it's not you might be doing the same thing, but when you hear what I'm saying about them, do you think that is an okay to live your life that way? And what are the downstream ramifications of it? So we continued, to kind of talk about that. But then I got my favorite pushback on the processed foods. So then everyone started mentioning specific brands and how, but I'm eating these cookies and it says on the label it's healthier because they're low fat, or they're this and that, or they have 50% less sugar. Well, instead of consuming, 4 tablespoons of sugar, consuming 2 tablespoons of sugar in a big cookie, that there's nothing about that is going to help you in anything. It's not going to help you in your mental health. It's not going to help you in your physical health. It's not going to help you in your lifespan, your health span. It's not going to help anything. But again, they are pushing back vehemently. Oh, this is healthy. Oh, I have this brand, and it has these things. It got almost contentious. And it continued because I actually asked my physician assistant that was with me in the room. He said, oh, no, when you left, he's like, that's when the real conversation started. People were talking about, well, man, that guy doesn't want me to eat cookies. So everyone was thinking about, well, what are the best cookie brands? And what it wasn't like, well, maybe I should cut cookies out of my diet because I'm 37 pounds overweight. No, that wasn't the thing. It was like there was this big discussion about healthier cookies, and they're not consuming cookies. This isn't a one cookie. This isn't a one cookie discussion. I mean, we're talking about, well, if I'm going to eat 10 cookies, which 10 should I eat? Well, none. How about none? There's no 10 cookies. Nothing is good unless they're clean, healthy, protein-based cookies that are made, in something. And again, we can get into that. We can do an entire episode and compare different types of quote-unquote health food brands that are sold to you in health food stores. Some are healthy, some are not. And that's a whole other discussion. But again, the reason that I want to bring up that specific discussion is because it ties into this whole entire other thing, going back to the $5, value meal that we're pushing on everybody. At some point, our brains have been absolutely conditioned to this idea that consuming these things, even in moderation, is okay and part of a healthy lifestyle. I don't know how else to tell you this. It's not. There's nothing healthy about it. Okay, I urge you to really watch some of experts. Watch some of Dr. Lustig, Dr. Robert Lufkin. Watch Dr. Joel Furman, who was recently on my podcast. Go on their thing. Go on their posts and just click on there. Send them a message. Say, is it healthy to consume these foods in moderation? And just watch their responses. I ask you to do that. They're not doing it because they're trying to profit. These guys aren't profiting anything off of making, America healthy. They just have had this epiphany. They've seen what happens when you live these kind of lifestyles. Now, before, getting in to how I discuss this with my patients and where my patients are, I just want to bring up a point on why and what I bring up when I talk to lay people that are talking to me. And when I say lay, yeah, they're in the surgery, but they're not, wellness expert. I mean, they haven't read all these books and all this stuff. So we'll just consider them, they're just kind of people that kind of consume the same media most people that are listening, to this radio station are listening to. So the main issue about junk food and these other things and it being peddled is that over the course of your lifetime, it's going to have effects. But I want to phrase it in a different way because, again, I almost had to pull over on the side of the road when I heard this discussion on the value meal. And so that is this. One of the deep things that they try to get you on is the convenience factor and the dollar factor. I understand that a box of Frosted Flakes is very cheap. It's a very cheap breakfast, right? And per unit, I mean, what are you spending? It might not even be $1 for a bowl. I don't know. I'd have to do the math. I don't know what Frosted Flakes costs these days, like the value for the giant one, the giant massive box that you can get of these things, right? So your kids are eating these for breakfast. And then you have the $5 value meal. You stop at the convenience store. Oh, that hot dog, that looks great. Let me just wash it down with a bottle of Mountain Dew, and we're all, life is good. Okay, or even bigger. You want a 64-ounce or 128-ounce big gulp or something like that. It's cheap. It is going to save you money, right? So it's a lot cheaper to eat at one of these places or, swing by Wendy's or do stuff. And again, I don't have anything personal against these corporations. They need to do what they need to do. We need to do what we need to do to fight back on the chronic health issue. Yes, it's going to save you money, but let's think about it in a different way. When you're saving these dollars, especially, and I'm really speaking to everybody, but especially like in the lower socioeconomic groups, because the McDonald's CEO straight out came out and said they target people under $45,000 a year, and as you know, people under $45,000 a year in our economy struggling from inflation are really struggling, right? Because I get it, the price of eggs, everything is higher. They target you. And they target you with their low-cost petrochemical junk. I don't have any way better say it. I apologize for not being super optimistic on this particular episode because I'm not happy about it. Let's think about it a little bit different. What are the long-term ramifications of leading these lifestyles? Let's think about cost to you. Do you know how many people, because of their chronic diseases, become disabled and can no longer work? People that have good jobs. Okay, so let's think. What is the potential long-term cost to you if you literally can no longer work because you're too sick to work and now you're on disability, okay, because you're sick? That's one thing. Let's talk about productivity at work, okay? If you are eating and consuming processed foods, junk foods, fast foods, all these things that we talk about, okay, your mental health will suffer. There are thousands and thousands of articles that show how mental health is affected by, super high refined sugars, processed foods, on and on and on. Again, this is not a detail show. This is just a shock show. I want to shock into what you're doing because you might want to think about this different, because for the 32-year-old out there that's rolling their eyes at me right now, I want you to think about what happens when you have 3 children and you can't work when you're 40 because you thought that driving by and getting those value meals 4 times a week was a great idea. Okay, and I'm not even using hyperbole. This is just real life. This is what's going to happen if you continue to lead this lifestyle. And then you're sedentary, you go to work, you sit down, you don't work out, you don't do any of these things, right? So anyway, mental health is clearly affected by processed foods, high refined sugars, seed oils, all this stuff, okay? So what about mental health issues and how much that affects your work performance? So what does that do? Number one, you're not going to be a good employee or a good entrepreneur or whatever you're trying to do, okay? You're going to be potentially useless to your family, right? Because you're struggling with all these potential mental health issues. You have depression, anxiety, all these other things which we need to do something about. And one of the things we need to do is figure out what in God's earth is on your fork and you're putting in your mouth, because that is contributing a lot to our mental health crisis in conjunction with many, many, many other things, okay, including mass media and this and that. But let's focus on the nutrition. So if your mental health starts to suffer, 1, you can't function as well. 2, you may become disabled because of your mental health. And again, you're in that same boat, right, with physical chronic disease, a disability. Okay? Let's think about other downstream ramifications. What then happens if you have a promising career or you have big aspirations, but now you run into mental health issues, which a lot are due to your nutritional intake, right? You potentially cost yourself the ability to get to the next level, to fulfill your dreams in life, right? And so, again, what is the downstream cost? Now, what is the cost to your children that are eating these diets? They're struggling in school. Their grades aren't as good. They have mental health issues. They have to go see all the counselors and do all that, okay? If a counselor's even available with some of the budgets in a lot of these schools, especially in lower socioeconomic, districts. And so the downstream spend is massive, right? So choosing to go and eat fast food instead of there are cheaper ways to get healthy nutrients in your system. Things like, vegetables, nuts, seeds, that kind of stuff. There are ways to do it, and that could be the subject of another show. I probably will have an expert on to talk about low-cost ways to have very, very healthy diets, and I think that will be very, very helpful. But that information's out there. You can Google it, and you'll get all kinds of suggestions and all kinds of authors that talk about this stuff. But, yes, you might have to spend somewhat more. But why don't you personally sit down and total up the costs and then just do a little exercise? Sit down, think about your current job right now, and then think about where you and your family are going to be if you become completely disabled or you have a chronic disease and have massive medical bills, potentially putting you in a horrible situation. So now you're not working. You have medical bills. Right, you're depressed because of all of it. You have anxiety. How does that affect How does that affect your kids' perception of you? You feel then people feel like, oh my God, I let my family down because I did this, and that. It is a horrible sight. Why don't you sit down, just do a little exercise, spend 15 minutes, do this exercise, and say, does it cost me now, both in having to have a little bit more willpower, but also spending more? What does that cost? And what does it cost me not to do these things? And I could tell you from talking to patients over and over and over and over and over again, I can sit here for show after show and I will tell you how many lives were ruined. And when I dig into it and we talk about what their lifestyle habits were that got them to this point, even them, they'll be the first person to say, I did this to myself. The ones that, are open-minded and even want to have this discussion. And so, again, what is it going to cost you down the line? Okay? So that's one exercise I really, really want you to do, and I'd love to see your comments for those of you that are either, watching this as it happens or you're watching this in the podcast format. Okay, next, we don't have time on this show to talk about sort of a lot of patients and how this is all affecting them and how kind of the hacking of their mind, as Dr. Lustig, beautifully puts in the title, Hacking of the American Mind in his book. What are my patients thinking, and why is it so alarming to me? And I know you've heard me talk about this before. I have conversation after conversation with people about their perception, both of their nutritional habits, but also what they feel is normalized. And I'll tell you the overall the two biggies that really, really bother me. And I'm going to go back to what I said before. One, the normalization of horrible diets. I had Dr. Furman on my podcast, and he actually said the following. He said something, and I paraphrase him, the Nazi doctors, even in their most, evil moments, could not have created a diet more deleterious to the human being than the American diet is today. They literally would look at it and say, oh, let's make some changes, and then go through the average American diet and say, forget it, it's fine. That's good. We got it. They're killing themselves. Perfect. Okay? And so what are the two big things? When I talk to people, the understanding of my patients, when I really get into the discussion about their processed food intake, their refined sugar, whatever, and they're so thankful when we have this discussion. They absolutely believe, not all of them, some of them know that they're way over, but some of them that are way, way over normal consumption of processed foods, they are shocked to understand how horrible it is and how much their idea that we should be consuming this in moderation and it's okay is. And when I start talking to them and start breaking down some of the statistics, they're absolutely shocked. And again, like I've said on the show, it's fantastic to see that once you show that, I show them, I get it, I understand, and I understand why they think that. It's clear. They're very thankful to be able to have that conversation and talk about it and really learn some other things. And most of them are willing to go out and buy some of these books that I recommend, such as The Obesity Code and other things that I recommend. The other biggie with my patients when I talk to them, and again, this is a little bit off, but it's the other big one, is how much we have normalized in the minds of America and in the world. But, I mean, it is bad in America and somewhat in Canada, and some of the other westernized nations. I don't think it's as bad in Australia. We can get into that in another discussion. But how much we've normalized that even at a younger age, that taking many, many pills to mask symptoms of the disease, not to approach the disease, let's not go after the root cause, but all this masking of the disease, we've completely normalized it. And managing symptoms with medications is now normal. It's like, okay, I don't feel good. I'm not going to make the changes. I'm just going to ask my doctor for a pill, or I'm going to get this over-the-counter thing, or it is literally normal. It is just the way we are. It's every discussion I have. It's normal to eat like crap, and it's normal to take pill after pill after pill, whether it's over-the-counter or prescriptions. And obviously, some of the prescription medicines have way more side effects. It's totally normal. I've talked about the excessive medication list. I've talked about this and that. The rudiment, the understanding is it's so low across the board in how much we are poisoning ourselves with everything we do. And I'm not even adding what we do to ourselves by being on mass media constantly and poisoning our brains with all these other stuffs. It is the opposite of the way this human machine was really designed, to live. Just a brief one, and I'm actually going to pick this up on the next episode because I have a lot of patient stories I'd like to share with you because it really hits home. This is just yesterday before I'm doing the show, and I had a great couple in there, and the woman was a newly minted diabetic, I like to call it. Congratulations, now you're like everyone else in this country. So newly minted diabetic, and we sat there. And she was so we went through her diet and was pretty shocked to understand that even what her physician had given her kind of recommendations about reducing processed foods, the number of processed foods per day that this person was consuming is, to me, alarming. So we went through that. They were very, very open to it. We talked about recommendations that her nutritionist had made as far as sugar intake daily, and that came directly from the American Diabetic Association. And my response to that was, if you want to become more diabetic, continue following that piece of recommendation. So after they understood how much because obviously they're coming to a spine surgeon, it's the first time I've ever met this couple. After they understood how deeply invested I am in these topics, it opened up an entire thing. I mean, they didn't want to leave the room. Unfortunately, I had other patients, so I can only spend so much time with them. But we really did go through some specific recommendations for them. They actually went on Amazon while we were talking and purchased the obesity code book. So I knew they were going to be serious. So that moment, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps right now talking about it because it excites me when I could just make a difference in just one person's life. So they were very excited, and the husband he was like, oh, my God, we've been struggling with this. We're seeing all these doctors. Her diabetes is just getting worse. Now she's on insulin. I hear this story, folks, over and over and over again. So on the next episode, let's do this. I'm going to save the patient stories for that, okay? On the other side of the break, we'll kind of close this up with some closing thoughts to stimulate things. Here's how we are going to get over this. You guys, you have to educate yourself. There are so many incredible resources, including podcasts, amazing books, people you can follow on social media, and I mean serious people that have serious ideas about how we can combat this, okay? You've got to listen to people, listen to a broad variety of people, educate yourselves, and like we say on the show over and over and over again, be the CEO of your own health. Stop letting the forces that are out here control your minds and lead you down the path of sickness, disease, and just not leading the life and fulfilling the potential that you can have. And I don't mean potential by becoming, an astronaut. I mean just potential for being the best parent you can be, the best teacher you can be, the best whatever you want to be, the best you can be. So on that note, we'll see you on the other side of the break, and we will wrap up this rant and hopefully get it picked up next week. All right, everyone, and welcome back to Recharging the Human Battery show with Dr. Stefano Sinicropi. We are on AM 950 radio, and I've really enjoyed speaking to you today. This is a topic that I am so incredibly passionate about, and I am going to spend, the next years and years and years of my life, if I'm blessed to be here, really trying to hone the message both to you guys but also to my colleagues of how much of an emergency it really is that we figure out an anti-corporate, powers that be messaging that resonates with our colleagues and with the general public, so that we can turn this around, so that we can have a better society. If you look at it as an overall, like an overarching thing, think about where our society is now, okay? There are so many divisions in our society. There is an unease on our society. There's a lot of politics, right? We're in political season. People are unhappy. We have an inflation crisis. We have this and that and the other thing going on. But at the root cause of it, think about this for a second. If you're wrapped up into any of these controversial things, like you're very polite, you're upset or you're mad because you're think about it. If you're healthier, happier, you have a clear mental health state, think about how much more you are going to not get sucked into all of the negativity that is going on and doing that. On the flip side, think about when you are most likely to get wrapped into being angry about something, right? You're angry about this, or you're mad about this, or this political, or this guy, or you're upset at work, or you're oh my God, I can't believe it. When you're feeling well and you hear a comment or you hear stuff, you're just happy, right? Because you're just trying to make the world a better place. You want to help yourself, your kids. Everything's great. You want to contribute to organizations you're working with. When you feel like crap because you're consuming processed foods, you're on 9 medications, life sucks, of course you're going to get wrapped into all these other things. So my point here being is, let's think about it on a complete societal thing. And this is why I'm so passionate about this. If we have a happy, healthy society, do you think we're going to have a better, more productive society that is making decisions that are going to make the next generation, reap the benefits of it? Or do you think we're going to have a worse? Of course it's going to be better. If we're sick, and we are very sick. We've done the statistics, right? More than 40, +% of the nation, has multiple chronic. It's a horrible, right? So if we're a sick country, we're going to make bad decisions. We're not going to love thy neighbor, and we're just going to not treat each other well. So this is just more than this radio show or me saying, oh my God, these corporate, all this stuff. It's really about broader societal issues. And if I have some time on the next show, we'll talk about that, because there's some really good, really brilliant people talking about these things. So on that note, why don't we skip the value meals this week and then just skip them permanently if we can? Why don't we talk to our kids about doing that? Why don't we try to be the CEOs of our own health? Why don't we try this for a little bit? I'm telling you, it is going to make a dramatic difference in your life. Your kids are going to have a better life. The people around you that you're preaching this stuff to, they're just going to do better. So thank you for putting up with my rant today. We'll see you next week where we go through a bunch of really, really important patient stories and turnarounds. And again, thanks for joining us today on Recharging the Human Battery here on AM 950 Radio. I'm Dr. Stefano Sinicropi, and I'm trying to make a difference, and I'm trying to help you guys really, really take control of your lives and get your health back.